All right. Welcome. You're listening to Mindful Manifesting. This is Ariana Rollins, and we've got a wonderful upcoming episode. I'm really excited to introduce you to Kristen Edwards in a moment. And we're going to be talking about, maybe some people might think it's kind of out there, woo-woo energy stuff, but I know that's where the success lies, when we focus on not just the physical scene things of what we want and what's happening in our life, but we're reaching bigger. We're looking at things such as the Enneagram. We're looking at things such as how do we find fantastic team members for our team so that they can take the things off our plate that we're not so good at, and then we can brilliantly shine our light. I'm so glad you're here, so glad you're listening, and I'm going to welcome Kristen, and just tell us a little bit about how you got into the Enneagram and how you help people, how you got into helping people find and create successful teams. This is going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ariana, for having me. So it honestly goes back to just being a kid of the 90s, right? Every magazine had a quiz, and it was like, find out your blah, blah, blah by answering these 5 stupid questions. And I will admit, like, those magazine things were horrible, but I loved it, and I loved unpacking it. I was always the kid who didn't fit in. I was the youngest in my grade. I was good at math, which is like what girls are not supposed to do, but I also was a theater geek. And so people were like, how can you be both academic and a theater person, but hate English and writing, and things that just never made sense, on top of being one of the few minorities. And so I was always on the search for, like, please explain me. So these magazine quizzes were the start of it. Then I started reading. My mom was on a John Maxwell kick in her life. And when your parent, you tell your mom, who's an English teacher, I'm bored, they say, go read a book. So what do? You start reading John Maxwell books at 12 years old. And so I was understanding and learning about personal development and knowing yourself way before anyone thought it was a cool trend, the kind of way that we, have seen it the last couple of years. And so I ended up getting a master's in psychology. Again, have always loved to just unpack, who are people? How do we fit in this world? How do I fit in this world? And so the Enneagram I didn't stumble upon until my late 20s. And it was another friend who's like, I know you love these quizzes and all these psychology things. Have you heard of it? And I was like, no, but of course, send me a link. I'll go take this quiz. And so that's how I started with it, right? Like, I'm not going to say that I understood it at the time. I thought it was just another quiz. Now, I read it, and I can't tell you that I felt not just seen and understood, I felt exposed. What is this quiz? How do you understand me? Please explain. And so I started unpacking, not just like, okay, I know my type, but tell me more. How do I understand other types? How do I understand my type in conjunction with other people? And so it's very much seen and understood as like this relationships thing. You see it a lot in like this marriage setting. But as someone who in my professional life works in HR, had used Myers-Briggs and DISC on a corporate setting, again, started geeking out on these quizzes a long time ago, I started to say, how does the Enneagram pull into my professional life? And so went down a rabbit hole, eventually got certified as an Enneagram coach. But for me, it was always saying, how do you connect? And I think a lot of times there's 2 layers of it. So one, the Enneagram helps you understand yourself. And then as you understand yourself, you can see how it connects to others in the world. But I will say it started as a random girl who loved quizzes. And now I see the value of how understanding ourselves helps us show up in the world.
Yeah, brilliant. I didn't realize we have as much in common as we do. I was reading at 13 years old, Scott Peck's Road Less Traveled. And, and I continued reading and digesting as much as I possibly could. And I remember I learned about the Enneagram from the original source, Gurdjieff, in the books that were written by his most esteemed student, Ouspensky, and he documented it. So there have been books, other books written on the Enneagram. And to be honest, it felt invented, the book that my friend recommended. And I was like, no, because you're like, you're trying to see the traits in there that are you, and we don't know ourselves enough. That's the value of a quiz. And when I recently started with a new client, and one of the things he does is he has all his clients do this truity.com test. And I was like, it's very interesting. So what I found with that little assessment is that there was a resonance. It's like somebody's done the work to actually ask questions that will pull out and reflect some helpful, useful truth so we can turn up better. And like you said, is, before we started, is to bring on team members that will counterbalance us, maybe bring the best out of us and make us more effective and successful in our business. Because we know if we're doing something, I don't know, if somebody doesn't like writing and they're required to do a lot of writing, blog posts, social media, and they've got to write, their webinars. And for them, it's like pulling teeth. It's painful. But if they were to counter it or bring on somebody who had that passion, maybe they were really good at editing and they could take, the scribbles of what the entrepreneur put together, and then they flesh it out and create something of value. So talk to me about how you go about helping people pick good team members. And because you said that, you could do this balancing. So for example, I will tell you, because I took the test, my client asked me to take it, wanted to see what, my layout was. And I'm primarily a 2 and a 4. And those are givers, right?
Yeah. So the Enneagram is a beautiful assessment. And yes, I refer to it as a quiz just to kind of oversimplify, but it is a typology assessment that, again, it allows us to understand who we are. So there's 3 triads. So we are either head-centered, heart-centered, or kind of gut instinct-centered. And then within those triads, you have primary types. And so the 2s, 3s, and 4s are all heart-centered. The 2 is known as a helper, the 3 is known as an achiever, and the 4 is known as an individualist. And so even within those types, you have healthy and unhealthy versions of yourself, right? And so all of those types in their unhealthy setting can be seen as people pleasers. But at your healthiest, if you set the right boundaries and you kind of say, let's do this for the right reasons, there's nothing bad about helping other people. There's nothing bad about wanting to achieve success. And there's nothing bad about wanting to stand out and be unique. And so it is just kind of having that awareness for yourself. And so there's some great things with it. You also have your wings. And so immediately adjacent to your number, if you're a 2 type, you can have a 1 wing or a 3 wing. And from there, it's like saying, okay, when you're not showing up as a helper 100% of the time, you might look like an achiever who's just creating success, or the type 1 who's an idealist and kind of seeing the world as right and wrong, black and white, good or bad. And so it's taking that. And then you also have strength numbers and stress numbers in terms of saying, like, when I'm not at my best looking self, here's how I kind of reach across the circle. And so in any given day, especially as women with floodgates of emotions and hormones and all sorts of things, you can look like 4 different numbers in 4 different hours. And so a lot of people are like, how do I choose just one type? You have one core type, and your core type never changes. And you can think back of when I was 7 years old, when I was 17, and how I look today. And you're like, yeah, that kind of rings true and consistent. But then you'll also say, when I'm on my best, when I'm giving of my highest self, this is how I look. And when I am depleted and stressed out and thinking the world and I are at odds, here's how I show up. And so I'll use myself as an example. I'm a type 8. And so at my core, I'm known as a challenger or a protector. At my highest version of myself, I look like I reach across a circle as a type 2, and I become an advocate of others. And so I am protecting those who cannot protect themselves. That's how I help the world. However, when I'm really stressed out and I'm like, I can't do anything, I go into a research mode. I look like a 5. The 5 is seeking knowledge knowledge and wisdom, but I do it in a not so great, like, let's go read 100 books and get a new degree or certification to make myself worthy enough, right? And so there's nothing wrong with knowledge, but if I'm seeking knowledge because I think I'm not worthy of something, I'm not showing up as the best version of myself. Now I have used all that knowledge, packaged it up really good, and now I help others advocate for themselves. So again, you can bring it all back full circle. And if you can't tell by the bubbliness of how excited I get about this, I have a very strong 7 wing, which is known as the enthusiast, kind of the party animal. I don't really party, but like I will have a party about the Enneagram all day and every day. And so it's about having that awareness of what is my core type? How do I show up best in this world? How do I serve other people? And there's a lot of times when you say, I look like 2 or 3 different types. I'm not sure. We are influenced by people who raised us, by the society that we've grown up in, right? Women are told that in American society, women are told we should be helpers, we should be giving. And so even if you have no overlap of 2 in your circle, society has nurtured us to show up and look like a 2 at times. Now, there are real 2s, plenty of them as well. But that's another way that sometimes you're like, hey, I keep showing up like this. I don't hit the 1 at all in the circle, but I was raised by my mother, who was a very strong 1. Like I didn't even have to have her take the test. And I was like, you're a 1. But she took it and confirmed she's a 1. And so I'll see those 1 traits come up because that's how I was nurtured in my life, and someone that I see all the time. Like I still love my mom. We have moments, but like still love her ultimately. And so again, if you're like, hey, I took this and I'm not sure, I'm dabbling between 2 numbers, think about who else in your life might have that kind of strong influence. It could be a partner, it could be a colleague. There's good and bad to, seeing someone else's number show up in your life, but you can recognize that as well.
Yeah, that was really helpful, Kristen. Then you can start to play with, well, like for me, I've got virtually no 6. So if we go wind back to picking team members and VAs and things, would that behoove me? That's my new favorite word lately. I'm like a little nerd, I picked my first word as a child. I got into my baby book was remarkable. And I would say it over and over and over again. So behoove is my new word today.
Got it. Remarkable and behoove. I love it.
6. So I've got very little of 6, and I don't know what 6 is about. Maybe tell us what 6 is. And would I then seek a team member that would have that?
Yeah. So maybe and maybe not. And I think there's a couple more variables to it. Now, the 6 is known as a loyalist. They're also very prepared. I like to think of the 6 as like the Mary Poppins. Like they have everything in their bag ready to go. Like we're going for a hike and they have a first aid kit as well as water and a whole tent. And you're like, it's a 1-hour hike. Like they're very prepared, but they also can overthink something. And so it kind of goes back to when you think about your core traits. Are you someone who makes quick decisions and doesn't think it through? Then maybe you want a 6 who's going to help you think through some things a little bit more. If you're naturally an overthinker, which like I am, you don't need anyone else to help you overthink something. But a 6 is also a loyalist. They are ride or die, thick or thin. They have your back. And so maybe you have some other things that you're like, I need to know that this person's going to stick by my side and that I can make a decision and they're going to support it. 6 will be there to support you. But if you need someone who's going to challenge you, help you think outside the box, then the 6 might not be your person because they're more likely to be a yes man than they are to say, let's push this a little bit further or let's go the extra mile. They're more likely going to keep you contained in that. And so thinking about what season are you in business? Have you hit a point where you're like, we just need to sustain and maintain. We don't need to double our revenue. We just need to like stay where we are. This feels really good. We just want to make sure that we don't dip down or have losses. Then a 6 could be really helpful. If you are still in that kind of like first 5 years of ramp up and aggression, or you set a 2024 goal of like, we are tripling, a 6 might not be your person because again, they're very loyal, and not that they won't support you reaching for more, but their natural inclination is not going to be to push or take risk. They're going to be about that safety net. And so again, there's a couple more variables that we want to unpack on whether a 6 is good, about thinking, yes, there's that awareness of I don't have anything 6 related when I think about where I can hit in multiple variables. But do I want that to change, or do I need someone who's going to help me double down on a different initiative that I might have?
Oh, yeah. Brilliant insight. So as you were describing, I had a team member with me for almost 4 years, and she was moving on and no longer serving entrepreneurs. And so she left working with me in August. And there was a sense of loyalty, but she also challenged me. But there was a constancy that was so brilliant that, kind of like, I don't know, I have a business bestie, and we often talk about when we grow our business, we grow kind of a business family. So we've got our business besties, we have our teammates that they become like just part of our family, and they grow with us. And it's just one of the best things about being self-employed. You can do that. But when she left, I realized that her pushback and resistance, the loyalty was almost a sticking point. She didn't want things to change. So when I would make a decision, we'd have a plan, and then, nope, I'm going this way. It was really hard for her. And that we would butt heads sometimes, but then sometimes she would challenge me and like, no, she's right. So it was just really brilliant. And I love the idea of having counterbalances, people who are not like me, to cause me to question, is the timing right for this? Is this the right opportunity? Because as entrepreneurs, we're given so many different options of where to spend our time, our money, and invest in ourselves and our growth. So yeah, that was really interesting. It was one other thing I was, so in kind of a hiring process, so someone's considering hiring a VA, this is something that you would recommend so let's talk about how you serve people, how you help entrepreneurs find these great teammates.
Absolutely. So when hiring, I do not recommend saying, welcome to the interview, go tell me your type. What I want you to do when hiring, and I've said this in corporate settings just as much as in the entrepreneurial settings, stop giving people tests. If it's an Excel test, that makes sense. Like, can the accountant do this math thing? That makes sense. But your personality should not be the thing. What I want you to do when you're hiring is to look at yourself. What's missing in my business? Where are the gaps that I have as this leader who's taking on a thing? What are my business goals? And so again, are my goals to grow my team so we can double the revenue? Are my goals to triple our impact? Am I putting out a new initiative of, business is good in terms of what we're doing, but we're adding on a podcast or a YouTube channel? And so think about what are those layers to your business that you have? And then where are you? Are you someone who's really organized and productive and efficient with your time? Or are you a little bit all over the place? And either of those things is completely fine as long as you have the awareness of it. That's the part that's most important. So you can be like, I'm a hot mess. I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. That's cool because you have the awareness of it, that you now need to bring in someone who's very organized and disciplined. When you write that job description, be honest about those gaps. I'm not saying that your job description is like, come help an entrepreneur who's a disaster, right? But help an entrepreneur who needs help with project management, with organization, who's building out my ClickUp, or am I looking for an admin who's focused on social media or podcast editor or a video graphic design, type of person. So be really clear. It's easy to be like, oh, I need a social media manager. What is that social media manager coming in to do? Are they running your Instagram, or are they helping to repurpose content from another channel into it? Or are they writing out every single caption? So be really clear about what you need. And that starts with looking within yourself. If you already have other team members, so it's looking at hey, there's 3 of us currently on the team. Here's the 3 things that we're doing well, and here's the thing that we're missing. And so still saying, I love how you describe that family unit, right? What's missing within this unit that we now need to bring in a 5th person or a 4th person to help us. And so looking at those gaps, looking at collectively, we have 3 really organized people who never have any fun. We need to bring in a spontaneous person who's going to have a lot of bubbly energy. That could be a 7, that could be a 4, that could be a 2. There's multiple numbers that have that bubbly energy, but who do we need who's going to bring in that life, think outside the box, stop being such workaholics, and balance out what we're currently doing. So it starts with looking at what you currently have and what's missing, and then you write your job description accordingly. And obviously your job description is only 1 page. What are those questions I need to ask? Hey, what do you do outside of work? Oh, I work more, or I read books about work. Might not be your person if you're trying to bring in a fun element. Maybe you guys are having too much fun and need to get serious. Great. That person who loves reading about work after work is probably the person that we need to bring in to the team. And so thinking about those interview questions, not what's your favorite type of ice cream, but understanding and reading between the lines of this person is going to balance well with the dynamic that we're missing in terms of work ethic, but also like we still like them, right? Like don't hire someone you hate. And so there's a balance of opposites attract, but at the same time, we have enough common values, common goals that I know we're going to be able to work together. Now, after you've hired them and they've joined the team, hey, we know that the Enneagram is a really powerful tool. It helps us to connect and speak to each other. I'd love if you take an Enneagram assessment so that I can manage you effectively, so that I can speak in a way that resonates you, and that I can give you rewards based on what motivates you. Is it money? Is it extra time off? Is it new responsibilities? And when you understand their personality type, you're going to be able to meet them and keep them excited about work.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I was thinking, having someone in the interview phase, like, go run your human design chart. And I want you to run the Truity. I want to know what your Enneagram is. And making decisions from resources and personality assessments, or, energy types, like with human design. I think sometimes we can get too much in our head versus writing down really detailed description of what is it I want them to do on social media. I want them to create it completely, like you said, repurpose content, or I want them to be self-sufficient. And that's way more important than the type. And I sometimes think, well, myself, I like fast path. Oh, I'm just looking for a 6 because I don't have any 6 in mind. And that would be so limiting versus fleshing out and counterbalancing where my weakness, but it's not a weakness, is it? It's just, I'm not wired that way. So right. Yeah, super good. I really enjoyed this conversation. So as we start to wrap up, Kristen, I'd love to shout out how people can find out more about you and basically how they can connect with you and how you serve.
Yeah. So my favorite place to hang out is Instagram. And so you can head over to Kristen, as in you spell my name correctly. So KRIS, the number 10 Edwards _. And then I also have a podcast called Amplify Ambition, which is really about how we can speak boldly about the success that we desire as women who are chasing our dreams and making them happen, but also being really strategic in how we live out our leadership every single day. And so it's a great podcast to, resources, amplify ambition. And then from there, feel free to reach out. I love DMs. I do respond myself in terms of how we can work together, whether that's a one-on-one environment or coming in and working with your team.
Okay, great. And as we wrap up, what's something that most people don't know about you?
Ooh, I feel like most people don't know how much of a theater geek I am. Like I say it, but I almost say it in passing. I still will learn songs so I can belt them out in my basement, as not to annoy my kids. And so I think that's one piece of it that people don't see as well. I think the other thing that people don't know is I have consciously chosen to work in both corporate and be an entrepreneur at the same time. And I have no desire to quit both. I love both very much. They also very much overlap in terms of my skills and what I do every day.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. And as we wrap up, thank you so much for listening to the episode. And if you would like to kickstart your manifesting journey, I'll put the link in the show notes. This is something where you start to accomplish your short-term objectives, 30 to 40 days, and that they start to happen and unfold naturally and organically without pushing and forcing. And remember, as you confirm yourself, you chart your own course and path to success. So much love. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.